back, everybody. Still continuing our discussion around that question. Is South Africa a violent country? We've already answered that question. Well, the three of my panelists have answered it. Yes, South Africa is a violent society. But why are we a violent society? That is what we're trying to get to the bottom of. Well, in our Pretoria studios, we've got our Statistician General, Pali Lehohla. And before the break, I alluded to the fact that during apartheid, crimes really were around a colour-based issue. But having a look at studies now, Pali, what are we looking at? Does crime know colour?
Well, I would argue that violence during apartheid, the only thing it was meted against blacks, but those who meted this were also violent. So it takes two to be violent. So that was the case. At the moment, the nature of the violence that we see, especially amongst the black community, is a lot of crime in the family, violent crime against women, against children. That's how this crime has actually shifted. But you also see that across the color line. I mean, the Pretoria's case is a clear manifestation of this kind of family-based violence. If we look at violence such as theft, that has shifted in terms of those who will be victims of theft will be a white divorced male and an Indian business person. That's the manifestation of violence which is likely to be based on theft, home robbery or business robbery.
Yeah.
So this is the nature of the crime. But more generally, crime is a major problem across all races. In fact, what we see is a lot more crime and violence against foreign business people. We saw the Somalis and they speak of our systems almost fuel, or at least people peak on certain points, and that fuels violence. I mean, we are largely on the brink, I think. And I think the two panelists have explained what the genesis of this is. Let me tell you what is happening in my organization at the moment. We wanted to, as an organization, consider whether we can think about 100 years of statistics in South Africa from 1914 to 2014. This raised so much discussion, heated debate in the organization around what will that represent. And we sat back and looked at what have we not done and what needs to be done to deal with the South African society and psyche within the organization. So we've come up with a program that really unpacks this nature and understanding of what a new South Africa means and symbolism means.
Yeah.
So celebrating or considering 100 years of statistical practice in South Africa meant totally different things and violently opposed views on the matter. So we have dealt with the statues in the organization in the last year.
Yeah.
And we see the display of these statue arguments playing in the public at the moment.
Yeah. You mentioned, and you never finished a sentence, you said that South Africa is on the brink. On the brink of what, Pali? What are we on the brink of?
You see, the world itself at the moment is very, very violent. If you look at the ISIS, you look at the world all over. And so this matter of violence is not only a South African issue, but South Africa has a uniqueness in it, which is the apartheid legacy, which is still with us. I mean, if you have unemployment, and the character of that unemployment is that 75% of the youth are unemployed, certainly you can't expect miracles around people who are the future and have no hope about that future.
Yeah. Especially
if that is predicated on independence and freedom from apartheid. And that freedom doesn't mean a lot in terms of human beings engaging in human activities that are beneficial. So we are sitting on this issue which is called a demographic. And one of the things in South Africa which is very important is the question of demographic dividend. The apartheid system succeeded in making sure that South Africa goes through a demographic transition. without guaranteeing any demographic dividend. So fertility declined, but without the necessary investment in education. And this was a result of apartheid, and we are still reaping that. And the demographic dividend, if you don't get it, is a dream deferred, and it creates lots and lots of complications. And those are symptomized in terms of the violence and the anger that we see in society.
Okay, very quickly, just to my two studio guests that I have here in Johannesburg before we take a break and go to the news. I'm looking at a tweet here from Kenneth Mungeka saying, when you're taken for granted by those who are supposed to give you hope and help, you're left with vengeance and frustration, and that changes you. It's just one tweet that I've seen that is really speaking to me right now. Are you worried when you look at our society? Nomfundo, you study this on a daily basis. Are you worried about South Africa?
We are very concerned. The general interpersonal violence has been a concern for a long time, but what is emerging, which concerns us even more, is the increase in what we call collective violence. Since 2009, there's been 900% increase of collective violence, violence service delivery, vigilantism, xenophobia. But what happens with that kind of violence, Leanne, is that these people that we call the political entrepreneurs or economic or religious entrepreneurs use that, take advantage of that. So what's happening in the rest of Africa is likely to affect us because we are busy radicalizing our young people and making a rife ground for them to be used for other means by those people. So it's a real concern. And we see with the xenophobic violence from 2008 to now, the business people are getting in. It's becoming more and more organized, and we're going to struggle as a country to deal with it. We're also finding an interface between politics and violence. So these organized people are also getting involved. So it is a serious concern for us as a society, and also looking at what is happening in Africa. Very, very quickly, Malose, I mean, that you took me by surprise there. A 900% increase in violence since collective violence in 2009. Where are we going? Because it's not getting any better. It is getting worse. So it's a grand concern. I imagine you're very concerned, and you are with the youth every day, and the youth is where this vengeance is.
I mean, when you talk to young people, they will tell you about their sense of helplessness, their sense of powerlessness, sort of their dreams are shattered. So obviously for them now, it is an expression of the feeling that they've been harboring for quite some time. And I think, Leanne, at a later stage, when we come back into what is it that we need to do, I think we need to get to that point. I mean, because for them, this is cry for help. You know, it's like, please hear us. We are in so much pain. And how do we respond? Do we respond by sending the police? Do we respond by calling them names to say you're hooligans? Do we then criminalize them? Do we shoot at them? Or do we then say, guys, let's sit down and let's have a conversation?
All right. Let's leave it there for this hour. Stay tuned to the next hour. Is South Africa a country in pain? It certainly seems that way after this discussion in the first hour. The question as to whether we're a violent country has already been answered. We are a violent country, but what do we do about it? And that is something we need to talk about. And I think leadership, not only in a government level, but in a household level, is what needs to be discussed. And that'll happen after this break. All right, stay tuned, everybody. Morning Live continues with the latest.